Hello, I'm Jeff Paur, senior writer for RealTime Fantasy Sports. Welcome to another edition of the RealTime Fantasy Sports Show. On today's show, I'm joined by Logan Glaser, once again, contributing writer here at RealTime Fantasy Sports. Logan, thanks so much for joining me. Appreciate it.
Thanks for having me on, Jeff.
So on today's show, Logan and I are going to discuss the 2022 running back position for fantasy purposes. It's an interesting year this year for running backs. Logan, we're going to talk about how we're approaching the position, some players we're targeting early, mid-round targets, players we're avoiding, late-round sleepers as well. So we're going to cover it all, talk about how we're drafting the position as well. So it should be a lot of fun. Logan, let's talk a little bit about our contest real quick, though, before we get into that. All sorts of different offerings this year. We have our big championships. We have all different price points for our other games as well. You excited about all these games we're offering this year?
Yeah, absolutely. And we've even got more games this year than last year. We've got the RTFFC Pro, the Super Pro, the Invitational. We got the Best Ball Championship as well. We got several different new contests this year with tournament style. So looking forward to all of those.
Yeah, and if you want to sign up for one of those leagues, go to rtsports.com, then click on the Money League link at the top of the page. You can see all the different offerings we have. Again, different price points, different formats, a lot of fun. We're very proud of our contest. Also, don't forget about our commissioner product as well. We have the best in the business, in my opinion, a lot of flexibility. So if you want to move your league over here, Logan, he'll be happy to set it up for you. So email support@rtsports.com if you want to do that as well. All right, Logan, let's jump into this running back position for this year. First of all, before we get into the players, how about just how you're approaching it this year? What are you going to do with the running back spot?
Yeah, with the running back spot, there's so many different strategies that you can go with. You can go with the handcuffing of running backs. You can go with the no running back committee. You can go with stacking with running backs. There's so many different options you can go with. I personally like handcuffing running backs. I like going with the starter and then getting the bench or the backup near the end of the draft. So that's personally how I'm going to attack it this year.
Yeah, for me, I'm taking two running backs with my first three picks. I just worry about it's kind of top heavy in my opinion. There's a lot of similar mid-round options in my opinion, and we're going to get into those guys we're targeting in those mid-rounds, but I want two sure things on my roster early in the draft. So I may go back-to-back running backs depending on where I pick. If I pick near the front of the draft and I get one of those top five guys I really like, I might go running back, receiver, running back. But if I'm picking towards the end of the draft, I'm more likely going to go running back, because I like the receiver position as well. I think it's kind of deep, and I just think there's a lot more uncertainty with the running back spot. So I'm going to go two of my first three picks, likely running backs, and then load up on them in the mid-rounds of the draft, and hopefully I can get one of those guys to stick. So with that said, let's talk about just how we're approaching those early rounds, because in my opinion, the top 8 or so backs are kind of set in stone, but after that there's a group of backs that is kind of up in the air in my opinion, that you can get in that third round, second, third round, fourth round even, and I want to know guys you're targeting after those top 8 guys, early in your draft. Who are two backs you like in that round?
Yeah, two backs I really like in those rounds, in rounds 2 and 3, are DeAndre Swift and Antonio Gibson. So with DeAndre Swift, what I really love about him is his ability to catch passes out of the backfield. Through the first 8 weeks in 2021, his lowest receptions was 4. He had 62 receptions on the season while missing 4 games, and he should be looking at 80+ receptions this year if he can stay healthy. Where he kind of struggled early in the season was his yards per carry, but throughout the season he really gained well with that, and he finished the year with 4.1 yards per carry. I really like the Lions' offense this year. Also, they've added several new pieces with Jameson Williams. They got Amon St. Brown, who really took off at the end of the season, and I really expect the offense to score a lot more touchdowns this year, leading to more opportunities for DeAndre Swift. And then my second target would be Antonio Gibson. He finished last year the 10th overall running back in scoring, which is kind of surprising. Right now he's going near the end of the third round in current drafts. He's a really good running back to pair if you go with a top wide receiver. So I really like if you go Justin Jefferson in round 1 or Jamar Chase, then following up with another running back in rounds 2, and then going with Antonio Gibson in that third round.
All right, I like both those calls. I really like Swift a lot this year. He's definitely one of my targets too. I think Gibson's a little more polarizing. I think people have different opinions on him, but you like him a lot, and I can certainly respect that. So I'm going to tell you two of my players that I like after those top 8 or so guys. My first one's Saquon Barkley. Again, I know he hasn't been very good in recent years, but he has a new offense, a new coach, new help along the offensive line, And his ADP is 25 right now, so you can get him in the 3rd round. This is a guy capable of finishing 1st overall in fantasy running back scoring that you can get in the 3rd round. I don't think there's many guys like that you can get that late. Again, carries some risk, but he has a ton of talent. He's produced in the past, and I like Brian Daboll as his coach as well. I think he's going to do a good job of helping Barkley reach his potential once again. There's talk about him getting a lot more catches out of the backfield also. So I think Barkley is definitely worth the risk in round 3. Also, if I'm going to take him, I'm likely going to be taking him if I get an early pick in the draft. So if I get a sure running back in my roster, take a little bit more of a chance on my 2nd running back, maybe getting Barkley on my way back in the 3rd round after maybe taking an elite receiver in round 2. So I think Barkley is looking up this year, and I think he's definitely worth the risk in round 3. Another guy I like a lot is J.K. Dobbins. He has an ADP of 34, so you can get him in that late 3rd, early 4th round. He had a monster finish to his rookie season. Don't forget about him because of his injury last year. He plays in a run-first offense, doesn't have a whole lot pushing him for playing time this year. I think he's going to get a lot of weekly touches, the goal line work. I can see him getting more work in the passing game as well. I think he's more than capable of being a good pass catcher out of the backfield. So I think Dobbins is a good guy to target after coming off an injury. I think you can get him cheaper than he should go, and he's a guy I'm getting on a lot of my teams right now. Okay, let's talk about mid-round targets now, Logan. So these are guys that are going after, these elite guys have been taken. There's a ton of them, in my opinion, that fall in that group, so it's kind of tough to navigate. Give me 2 guys you like in those mid-rounds.
Yeah, the 2 guys I'm really targeting in the middle rounds is Damian Harris and Ronald Jones. The big circle on my entire draft board is Damian Harris. I'm absolutely baffled about where he's going in these drafts. So last year he finished 8th overall at the running back position in 2021, while missing 2 games as well. He went in the 7th round in the last TFC draft, which is absolutely crazy to me, which is lower than where he went last year, even though he had a breakout season last year. In his last 11 games, he had 14 rushing touchdowns. So Patriots really relied on him in the red zone, and I'm really liking him in the 6th and 7th rounds this year in drafts. Some running backs near him are Singletary, Chase Edmonds, Kareem Hunt, and Kenneth Walker, and I think Damian Harris stands out big time compared to those other running backs. And another running back I really like in the middle target area is Ronald Jones. So he's kind of doing with a combo role with Clyde Edwards-Helaire this year. It's a new situation for him, but Clyde kind of shared his role with Darrell Williams last year, who finished running back 22 overall. So I really like Jones in rounds 10 through 12 if he's there, to go ahead and select him there. If he can finish in that running back 22 overall, you'll take that in that spot in the draft.
So it's interesting you say Jones. A guy on my list is his running mate, most likely Clyde Edwards-Helaire. I have him as a mid-round target. I think if he's ever going to have a breakout season, this is a year. I think he has less competition for carries. Even with Jones there, I think he could get more work this year. I think he has a chance for more work in the passing game as well, because they lost a lot at receiver with Tyreek Hill gone. Could be looking for more options in the passing game. So I think Edwards-Helaire could get more work there. And I just love him for his price tag. He has an ADP of 64 right now. So this was a guy that was taken in the late 2nd, early 3rd round of most drafts last year because a lot of people just loved his potential. Hasn't reached it yet, but you can get him a lot cheaper this year. And I think he's worth the risk. Another guy really capable of finishing high in those fantasy rankings if he gets the touches. Another one of my targets, kind of similar to Clyde Edwards-Helaire in my opinion, Miles Sanders. His ADP is 67. Again, hasn't really lived up to his potential this yet, but he plays in a good run offense, good offensive line. He averaged 5.5 yards per carry last year, 5.3 the previous year. Why not get this guy more work? I think he deserves it. If he gets to get carries, I think good things are going to come from him. You can get him really cheap as well, late 6th, 7th, even 8th round sometimes. And I'm not a fan of the depth behind him as well. I think he'll get a lot of work, and I think he could finally, take his game to a new level this year. All right, on the flip side of that now, Logan, let's talk about guys we're avoiding in our drafts, guys that we don't want any part of, letting other people draft. How about you give me two of those guys?
Yeah, I'm going to be avoiding Aaron Jones and Josh Jacobs in all of my drafts this year. So with Aaron Jones, where he's going currently in drafts is the end of the second round, early third round, and I think that's way too high with how he's going to be splitting the backfield with A.J. Dillon. I hate drafting running backs who are going to be splitting the backfield. Unless one of them gets hurt, then obviously their stock skyrockets. But here is how Aaron Jones finished with the last 6 games. He had 7 rush attempts, 10, 5, 13, 12, and 8. Plus, he saw less targets in all those games as well. So I really think A.J. Dillon's going to kind of emerge in that backfield. I do like having Aaron Jones as a starter, but where he's going in drafts, it is way too early for me to be taking him there. And then another running back I'm looking to avoid is Josh Jacobs. So he's been pretty consistent for the Raiders over the past couple of seasons, but with the offseason, the Raiders declined his 5th-year option, so he most likely will be heading into free agency after this year, and the talks have been around training camp is that they're going to be splitting more time with Kenyon Drake in the backfield, and the Raiders also drafted a running back in the 4th round with Zamir White. So it's kind of going to be a split backfield as well more with the Raiders this year.
So I love that call with Aaron Jones. I'm avoiding him as well. I really like A.J. Dillon this year. I think he could have a breakout year. So 2 other guys I'm avoiding. Derrick Henry is one of them. I know he's an elite back. He's fabulous when he's on the field, but he's coming back from a Jones injury, which is a big deal. It's been a lot of struggles for running backs in the past to come back from that injury. And his workload in recent years is just a big concern for me. Remember, he had 378 carries in 2020. That's a ton of work. He's had 300-plus carries 2 of the last 3 years. I just think he's a big injury risk for a guy that you're going to have to take a top 5 pick on. If I'm using an early pick on a running back, I want a guy that's not a big injury risk and carries a lot of red flags. Plus, Henry doesn't catch passes. So that worries me, and I'm just letting somebody else take him. I think he's too big of a risk, in my opinion. I know he was great when he was on the field last year, but how long can he stay on the field this year? And will his numbers continue to decrease because of all his increased carries? Another guy I'm avoiding, Ezekiel Elliott. I just worry about his workload with Tony Pollard emerging. Pollard was really good last year. I think he could get a little more work this year, even some of that early down work that Elliott normally gets. Plus, Elliott's been banged up in recent years. He's played through those injuries most of the time, but it's hurt his production. You can see that on the field. Just hasn't been great when he's on the field just because of some nagging injuries. I just worry about him staying healthy as well. Again, his price tag's not terrible right now. You can get him late 2nd, early 3rd round, so that's not horrible for Elliott, but still, I just think there's a lot of red flags with him. I'm letting somebody else take him right now. I'd rather have Pollard later in the draft personally. I think he has more potential in that offense. All right, we talked about targets early in the draft after those top guys, mid-round targets, guys to avoid. Let's talk about sleepers. Everybody loves a sleeper. How about guys you're targeting late in the draft? Give me 2 of them.
Yeah, 2 late round targets I'm targeting in the 2022 drafts is Rachaad White and Darrell Williams. With Rachaad White, Tom Brady loves pass catching backs, and that's exactly what White is heading into the season. To really get value out of White, though, you're going to need an injury from Leonard Fournette. With Fournette being active, you're kind of looking in a running back 4 role for Rachaad White. But if an injury happens to Fournette, I think White could be a top 10 running back in the league if Fournette goes out and he gets plugged into that role, because he has the capability of being a great rusher along with a great pass catching back. So I'm really going to be targeting White near the end of my drafts. And then another one is Darrell Williams, who's currently not being drafted in most of our leagues, so he's currently being undrafted. So I think you can take a late sleeper on him in rounds 20 or so in drafts. In 2021, I mentioned this earlier, he finished as the running back 22 overall. He finds himself, I think, in a good position with Arizona. He's behind James Conner, and this kind of suits his role with kind of him being a pass-catching back and James Conner kind of being a workload on the ground back with in the red zone and such. But if James Conner also gets injured, then Darrell Williams can step into that workload back, as we kind of saw last year with Clyde Edwards-Helaire going down.
I like both those calls, Logan. Here's 2 of them for me, 2 sleepers. One of them is a rookie, Tyler Algier. Opportunity, opportunity, opportunity. I think he could have an opportunity here. That's what it's all about when you're a rookie. Cordarrelle Patterson's still there, I know, and he's re-signed this offseason, but he wants to play more receiver this year. I don't think he's going to get quite as many carries, so that means somebody has to get the early down work. I think it could be Algier. He could be a really good fit for the zone running scheme. This is something he ran a lot in college and was successful. I wouldn't be surprised if he's starting before long after the season starts. So I think Algier is a good late round grab for fantasy teams. Another one for me is Marlon Mack with the Houston Texans. Someone has to start for Houston, and Mack is atop the depth chart right now. He's a former 1,000-yard rusher. He has produced well in the starting role in the past. I know they drafted Dameon Pierce, but I don't think he's going to be handed the job. Mack is first overall on the depth chart at the moment, and he was stuck behind a very good back in Jonathan Taylor in Indy, so I wouldn't look too much into him not playing a whole lot last year. It just wasn't a good fit for him in recent years. Certainly as a talent, I think he could do well if he's starting in this offense, and you can get him really late. Guys aren't really using high draft capital to get him. All right, Logan, that's our running back preview for 2022. I appreciate you joining me once again. It was a lot of fun talking to you. We're going to have to get into the receiver position next. That's an interesting position as well. But again, thanks for joining me.
Thanks for having me on, Jeff.
All right, this has been Jeff Paur for RealTime Fantasy Sports.
And this has been Logan Glaser from RealTime Fantasy Sports.
Have a great day, everyone.